One thing that you should understand about ACT synchronization is that ACT doesn't really synchronize one database to another. In other words, one device to another. What it synchronizes is a remote database to each of the devices. So the remote database has to be created first. And as you may have noticed, we're doing everything in the synchronization panel, and it's just as easy as 1, 2, 3. So let's take a look at the synchronization panel again. We'll click on Tools, go to the synchronization panel, and we'll take a look at what we've already done, and then you'll see that the third step is to create the remote database. So we've disabled, or we've enabled synchronization. We could disable synchronization there as well. We have managed the sync set, and so now we're going to create the remote database. If I click on Create Remote Database, what it says is, okay, well, give me a remote database name. Now, I've already created a database. It's sort of like the cooking channel, whereas it takes too long to do this in a simulated environment. So what I've done is I've created a remote database called Class 1, and that's why I gave it the name this time of Class 2, because if I tried to use something that was already done, it would give me an error. And you can see that the error is indicated by the flashing exclamation point, and then it just leaves it as a red circle with an exclamation point, which basically says, hey, I need a database name, right? And I need a database name that hasn't been used before. And then we set the location, and as we said, that will be specific to your own organization as to where you want this remote database to be. But it should be someplace that is accessible to both devices, and you'll have to make sure of the security settings. For example, you may have to open some ports in a firewall. If you use HTTP settings, maybe you can connect to a web server that is on the outside of the firewall. So for now, what I'm going to do is click on Cancel, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at a database that I have already created and just look at some of the things that get set up. Basically, all you would do is just put in a name and say that's the one I want to create, and then it would go through and create all these different things. Well, let's take a look at what it would create. I click on Manage Database, and let's look at this Class 1 database, and what we're going to do is view its settings. As you can see, the database name is Class 1, the database machine is listed, the main database, Act 8 demo is listed, the sync set that we're using is class, the server machines, the ports, the internet server address, which is of course a fictitious address. It would be HTTP and then something that connects to some web server. The expiration period for this in days, that's a security feature that we can use. A database status is active, is created by Chris Huffman, and it was created on this date. So we can talk about how all of this works in your organization, but it's going to be entirely different depending on your own organization and depending on what you want to do. Some things that might be common, if I click on Back here and then View Database Options, one of the things you have to choose is whether you'll allow the database supplemental files to synchronize. For example, what about attachments? Do you want attachments to synchronize? And if you do want the attachments to synchronize, do you know how long that's going to take? How big are the attachments? So those types of things are things that you choose as you go through the database setup. And as I said, again, that's just a point and click, follow the bouncing ball, and let the system do its thing. It just takes too long to do that for a demonstration like this. So I hope this has been helpful for as far as synchronization. We can only go so far with this because your own organization is going to have to make those determinations. But at least now you know where those tools are, and as you pull that together with your own network environment, your own network topology, and where your firewalls are and what ports you want to open, at least you know where some of these tools are to help with that synchronization. There is another category, the last category that we're going to talk about, which can apply to everyone, because it has to do with productivity. There are many tools that are in ACT that allow a user to be more productive with their time. And that, of course, is one of the main objectives with a contact management database. So, in our next chapter, we'll discuss productivity tools. That's next.